United Airlines Flight 93 was a regularly scheduled morning flight intended to connect Newark Liberty International Airport in New Jersey to San Francisco International Airport in California. On the morning of September 11, 2001, this flight was set to carry passengers, crew, and the weight of an unimaginable historical moment that would unfold as one of the most harrowing episodes in aviation history. The aircraft and its operation. Flight 93 was operated by a Boeing 757-222, a workhorse of United Airlines fleet. Known for its range, reliability, and capacity, the 757 was well suited for cross-country route. This particular aircraft was equipped with the latest navigation and communication technology of its time. It had a passenger capacity of 182, but on this fateful day, only 37 people were aboard, including 7 crew members and 4 hijackers. United Airlines, one of the major carriers in the United States, prided itself on its extensive domestic and international network. The airline had rigorous safety standards, with experienced pilots and well-trained flight crews. Captain Jason Dahl, a 43-year-old seasoned aviator with thousands of flight hours, was the commanding pilot. First Officer Leroy Homer Jr., 36, was a decorated Air Force veteran known for his precision and calm demeanor. Together, they formed a highly competent cockpit team. The cabin crew included flight attendants with years of experience, including Deborah Welsh, the purser, who was recognized for her warm demeanor and professionalism. The other flight attendants were equally seasoned, contributing to a smooth flight experience for passengers. The passengers on board. The passenger list reflected a cross-section of America. Some were traveling for business, others for family reasons or leisure. Among them were notable individuals who would later become symbols of courage and resistance. Todd Beamer, a 32-year-old software executive, was heading to a business meeting in California. He would later be remembered for his now iconic phrase, "Let's roll." Tom Burnett, a businessman and former pilot, had quick thinking and leadership skills that proved critical during the events on board. Mark Bingham, a public relations executive and former college rugby player, would later be celebrated for his bravery. Lauren Grandcolas, a marketing specialist, was traveling to San Francisco to attend a class. She had recently learned she was expecting her first child. These individuals, along with the other passengers, represented a diverse range of ages, professions, and backgrounds. Yet, they would all share a single defining moment of extraordinary heroism. Context and historical backdrop. September 11, 2001, began as an unremarkable late summer day. The skies were clear across much of the eastern United States, and airports operated as usual. Flight 93's scheduled departure time was 8 a.m., but due to air traffic congestion, it left the gate at 8:42 a.m. Just minutes before the first hijacked plane, American Airlines Flight 11, struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The attacks of September 11th were orchestrated by the terrorist group Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden. 19 hijackers divided into 4 teams had boarded planes that morning with the intent to weaponize commercial airliners. 2 planes targeted the World Trade Center, another the Pentagon, and the final target, Flight 93, was believed to be the U.S. Capitol or the White House. The passengers and crew of Flight 93 were unaware of these events as they settled into their journey. The 757 was cleared for takeoff, climbing smoothly to cruising altitude. The mood on board was typical of any morning flight. Some passengers read, others napped, and the flight attendants prepared for the beverage service. Key operational details. The airline industry in 2001 operated with strict security measures, though not as rigorous as the post-9/11 landscape. Cockpit doors, for example, were reinforced but not designed to withstand a full-scale assault. Communication systems allowed for contact with ground control but were limited in their ability to alert the cockpit crew of ground-based emergencies. The Boeing 757-222, like all modern aircraft, was equipped with transponders that broadcasted its position and altitude to air traffic control. This system played a critical role in tracking the plane when it deviated from its course. Significance of Flight 93. Flight 93 was not just another cross-country journey. It became a microcosm of humanity's capacity for bravery and selflessness. It wasn't initially chosen for notoriety but was thrust into history due to the actions of its passengers and crew. Unlike the other hijacked flights, this one did not reach its intended target, a fact that underscored the power of collective resistance and the indomitable human spirit. This section sets the stage for the extraordinary events that followed, providing a glimpse into the lives of those aboard and the ordinary circumstances that would soon transform into an extraordinary story of courage and sacrifice. United Airlines Flight 93 departed Newark Liberty International Airport at 8:42 a.m., delayed 42 minutes from its scheduled departure due to routine morning congestion on the tarmac. The aircraft, a Boeing 757-222, lifted smoothly into the clear morning sky, embarking on its cross-country journey to San Francisco. Passengers settled into their seats, with some working on laptops, others chatting, and a few catching up on rest. The atmosphere was ordinary, echoing the countless flights that crisscrossed the skies each day. The early stages of the flight. Flight 93 climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet and followed its planned route westward. Captain Jason Dahl and First Officer Leroy Homer Jr. maintained communication with air traffic control, reporting routine updates as the plane transitioned through controlled airspaces. The flight attendants began their service, offering beverages to the relatively light load of passengers on board. In the cabin, passengers like Todd Beamer, Tom Burnett, and Mark Bingham were settling into what seemed like an uneventful flight. Calls were made, books were read, and a sense of normalcy prevailed. No one could have anticipated the extraordinary events about to unfold. The hijacking begins. At 9:28 a.m., just over 45 minutes into the flight, the atmosphere aboard Flight 93 shifted dramatically. The hijackers, 4 men trained by Al-Qaeda, made their move. Led by Ziad Jarrah, a trained pilot and designated leader of the group, they forced their way into the cockpit. The attackers wielded makeshift weapons, including box cutters, and overwhelmed the flight crew in a brutal assault. The hijackers incapacitated Captain Dahl and First Officer Homer, taking control of the aircraft. They disabled the plane's transponder, making it more difficult for air traffic controllers to track its exact location. Within moments, Flight 93 deviated from its assigned course, turning southeast toward Washington, D.C. The cabin descends into chaos. In the passenger cabin, the hijackers declared their control of the plane and claimed to have a bomb on board. Fear swept through the cabin as passengers realized the gravity of the situation. Some clung to their seats, while others whispered prayers or looked to the flight attendants for guidance. The hijackers forced the passengers and remaining crew to move to the back of the plane, consolidating them in a single area. Amidst the fear and confusion, some passengers began using the plane's in-flight phones to contact loved ones on the ground. These calls would prove pivotal in understanding the broader context of the hijacking. Ground realities. At the same time, air traffic controllers were piecing together the extent of the coordinated attack. By this point, the first 2 planes, American Airlines Flight 11 and United Airlines Flight 175, had struck the north and south towers of the World Trade Center. The third plane, American Airlines Flight 77, had crashed into the Pentagon. As news of these attacks spread, passengers on Flight 93 began receiving information from their families and friends during phone calls. The realization that their plane was part of the same coordinated plot ignited a mixture of fear and resolve among the passengers. Passengers form a plan. Amid the chaos, leadership emerged among the passengers. Todd Beamer, Tom Burnett, Mark Bingham, and Jeremy Glick, among others, began discussing their options. Through calls to loved ones and among themselves, they pieced together a grim understanding. Their plane was likely intended for another high-profile target, such as the U.S. Capitol or the White House. Realizing the stakes, the passengers decided they could not sit idly by. They began organizing a counterattack, pooling their strength and resolve. Conversations over the in-flight phones revealed a shared determination to take back the aircraft, even if it meant sacrificing their lives. Hijacker communications. In the cockpit, Ziad Jarrah struggled to maintain control of the plane as his co-conspirators manned their assigned roles. He communicated with al-Qaeda operatives via the cockpit radio, relaying their progress. His calm yet focused demeanor belied the chaos unfolding behind him as the passengers prepared to resist. Jarrah adjusted the plane's altitude and speed, potentially preparing for a final approach to the intended target. However, the hijackers likely did not anticipate the resilience and courage brewing among the passengers in the cabin. The passengers make their move. By 9:57 a.m., after 30 minutes of captivity, the passengers launched their counterattack. They stormed the hijackers' position with makeshift weapons, including food trays, utensils, and a fire extinguisher. The struggle was fierce, with the passengers fighting desperately to breach the cockpit door. Inside the cockpit, Jarrah and his fellow hijackers realized their control of the plane was slipping. Audio from the cockpit voice recorder captured their frantic commands and prayers as the plane pitched and rolled violently, a testament to the chaos and determination of the passengers. At 9:57 a.m., the cabin of United Airlines Flight 93 transformed into a battleground. The passengers, galvanized by courage and a sense of duty, executed their plan to regain control of the aircraft. Armed with makeshift weapons and driven by the knowledge of the devastation already inflicted by other hijacked planes, they rushed toward the cockpit. The hijackers, caught off guard by the passengers' resolve, desperately fought to maintain control. The struggle in the cabin. The hijackers had barricaded themselves in the cockpit, locking the door to prevent intrusion. Inside, Ziad Jarrah, the hijacker pilot, struggled to keep the plane under control as the passengers attempted to break through. The cockpit voice recorder captured the harrowing moments. The sound of passengers pounding on the door, the hijackers shouting in panic, and Jarrah's increasingly frantic commands to keep the plane in the air. The plane began to pitch and roll as Jarrah tried to destabilize the passengers. The 757's engines roared as it descended from its cruising altitude, its trajectory becoming more erratic. The hijackers screamed prayers, knowing they were losing control. Meanwhile, in the cabin, passengers like Todd Beamer and Tom Burnett led the charge, urging their fellow passengers to push forward despite the chaos. The final moments. At approximately 10:02 a.m., the passengers succeeded in breaching the cockpit door. The cockpit voice recorder captured the sounds of the struggle as passengers fought the hijackers for the controls. Realizing they could not complete their mission, the hijackers decided to crash the plane rather than allow the passengers to seize control. Flight 93 plummeted toward the ground at over 500 miles per hour, spiraling violently. At 10:03 a.m., the plane crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, creating a crater 15 feet deep and scattering debris across several acres. The impact was so powerful that no one on board survived. Yet, the passengers' actions had succeeded in preventing the plane from reaching its intended target, likely saving countless lives on the ground. The scene of the crash, the rural field in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, was transformed into a scene of devastation. First responders, including local firefighters, police, and medical personnel, arrived quickly, but it was immediately evident there were no survivors. The wreckage was strewn across a wide area, with parts of the plane embedded in the ground and others flung hundreds of yards away. Despite the destruction, key pieces of evidence were recovered, including the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder. These black boxes would later provide critical insights into the final moments of the flight. Personal items such as wallets, photos, and charred fragments of letters were also found, offering a poignant glimpse into the lives of those on board. Reactions on the ground. News of the crash spread rapidly, with initial reports suggesting a fourth plane had been brought down. Local residents, many of whom had heard the plane's low approach or felt the ground shake on impact, were stunned by the scale of the tragedy. Volunteers and emergency personnel worked tirelessly to secure the crash site and recover remains, balancing the need for thorough investigation with respect for the victims. The families of the passengers and crew, many of whom had been in contact with their loved ones during the hijacking, were devastated. They had held on to fragile hope during the tense hours of uncertainty, only to face the crushing reality that no one had survived. Despite their grief, they would soon learn of the heroism displayed by their loved ones. Immediate national impact. The crash of Flight 93 marked the final chapter in the coordinated attacks of September 11, 2001. While the other hijacked planes had struck their intended targets, Flight 93 was the exception, thanks to the bravery of its passengers. Their actions became a symbol of resistance and unity in the face of terror, inspiring a nation reeling from an unprecedented tragedy. As authorities secured the crash site, President George W. Bush and other leaders addressed the nation, emphasizing the heroism of the Flight 93 passengers. The site in Shanksville quickly became a place of pilgrimage for those seeking to honor the lives lost and reflect on the profound sacrifices made that day. The crash of United Airlines Flight 93 on September 11, 2001, left behind a complex and emotional legacy. The immediate focus after the tragedy was on uncovering the truth behind the events on board and understanding how the passengers' actions altered the course of history. As investigations unfolded, Flight 93 became a symbol of selflessness, courage, and resilience in the face of terror. The investigation. The National Transportation Safety Board (NTSB), the Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI), and other agencies launched a comprehensive investigation into the crash of Flight 93. The cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, recovered from the crash site, were crucial in piecing together the sequence of events. The cockpit voice recorder (CVR) revealed the chaotic and heroic final moment. Investigators heard the hijackers' prayers, passengers breaking through the cockpit door, and the struggle for control of the aircraft. The CVR confirmed that the passengers forced the plane off course, preventing it from reaching its intended target, believed to be either the U.S. Capitol or the White House. The Flight Data Recorder (FDR) detailed the aircraft's erratic descent, corroborating evidence of the passengers' attempt to overpower the hijackers. Witness accounts from the ground, radar data, and analysis of the wreckage further supported the findings. The investigation concluded that the actions of the passengers and crew directly prevented a larger catastrophe, making Flight 93 the only hijacked plane that failed to strike its intended target. Impact on aviation security. Flight 93, along with the other 9/11 attacks, revolutionized aviation security worldwide. Before September 11, 2001, airport security protocols and cockpit defenses were far less stringent. The tragedy underscored vulnerabilities that were quickly addressed through sweeping changes. Reinforced cockpit doors. Cockpit doors were redesigned to be bulletproof, resistant to forced entry, and equipped with locking mechanisms controlled from inside the cockpit. Federal Air Marshals. The Federal Air Marshal Service was expanded, placing armed security personnel on commercial flights to deter hijackings. Transportation Security Administration (TSA). The TSA was established to standardize and enforce stricter airport security protocols, including enhanced passenger screening, bans on certain items, and pre-flight security check. Passenger Vigilance. The heroism of the Flight 93 passengers inspired a shift in public awareness. Passengers on flights began adopting a more proactive stance, ready to act against perceived threat. The families of the victims. For the families of those aboard Flight 93, the loss was profound and deeply personal. Many had spoken to their loved ones during the hijacking, hearing their bravery and resolve in real time. This unique connection amplified the grief but also fostered an extraordinary sense of pride. In the years following the crash, the families formed a tight-knit community, advocating for recognition of their loved ones' heroism. They collaborated with federal and local agencies to ensure the events of Flight 93 were accurately documented and honored. Their voices were instrumental in the creation of a permanent memorial at the crash site in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the Flight 93 National Memorial. In 2002, the Flight 93 Temporary Memorial was established near the crash site, allowing visitors to pay their respects. Over time, efforts grew to create a permanent memorial that would preserve the legacy of the passengers and crew. In 2011, the Flight 93 National Memorial was officially dedicated. The memorial features a wall of names, with each victim's name engraved on individual panels. The site also includes a visitors' center complex, detailing the events of September 11 and the specific story of Flight 93. A 93-foot tower of voices was later added, containing 40 wind chimes, one for each passenger and crew member, symbolizing their enduring legacy. Cultural and national legacy. Flight 93 became a powerful narrative of resistance against terrorism. The passengers' decision to fight back demonstrated the potential of ordinary individuals to act courageously under extraordinary circumstances. Their actions inspired books, documentaries, and films, including United 93 (2006), which depicted the events with harrowing realism. The phrase "Let's roll," spoken by Todd Beamer as the passengers initiated their counterattack, became a rallying cry of unity and resilience across the United States. The story of Flight 93 transcended the immediate tragedy, offering a message of hope and determination in the face of adversity. Lessons for the future. Flight 93 provided invaluable lessons for the aviation industry and beyond. It underscored the importance of proactive security measures, clear communication during emergencies, and the role of individuals in crisis situations. The passengers' selfless actions set a standard for how humanity can respond to the darkest of moments. In the years since, Flight 93 has been remembered not just as a story of loss but as a testament to courage and the enduring human spirit. The lives of those on board were tragically cut short, but their bravery ensured that their legacy would endure for generations.